What if the secret to feeling amazing isn't some new biohack or a fancy supplement? What if it's been around for thousands of years just waiting for us to rediscover it? It's a wild thought, right? We're always looking for the next big thing, the latest trend, that one magic bullet for our health and happiness. But maybe, just maybe, we're looking in the wrong direction. Maybe the most powerful wellness tools aren't in a lab or an app store. Maybe they're hidden in plain sight, tucked away in the ancient practices of our ancestors. For centuries, cultures all over the world developed ways to live. They weren't just surviving, they were thriving. They built communities, they understood the land, they created rituals. These weren't just random habits, they were deeply meaningful practices passed down through generations. They were the original wellness plan, designed by people who were tuned into the earth and to each other. It makes you wonder what kind of wisdom we've lost in our modern rush to innovate and move forward. What did they know that we've forgotten? I've been lucky enough to travel and see some of these old ways firsthand. So, I want you to join me on this little thought experiment. Let's put aside the latest fads for a moment and get curious about the past. Our modern life is like a non-stop sprint. From the moment our alarm goes off, we're on. Checking emails, scrolling through news feeds, juggling work, family, a social life. The pace is just relentless. We're constantly connected, but are we really connecting? We measure our days in productivity, in things checked off a to-do list. We drink coffee to speed up, take pills to slow down, always running, always chasing for our ancestors. Life was tied to a different kind of clock. Rhythm of the sun and the moon, changing of the seasons. Days weren't dictated by notifications and deadlines, but by the needs of the community and the patterns of nature. Life was slower, more deliberate, storytelling around a fire, preparing food together, watching the stars. A pace that allowed for reflection, connection, and a deep sense of belonging. The stress we face today is different too. It's chronic, low-grade, and always on. It's exhausting, and it takes a toll on our minds and bodies. But in between, ancient communities had periods of genuine rest and community support. They had built-in ways to release that tension. We, on the other hand, carry our stress around with us like a heavy backpack. So what did these ancient wellness plans actually look like? Let's talk about some real examples. In many indigenous cultures across North America, the sweat lodge is a sacred tradition. It's not just about getting hot and sweating out toxins, though that's part of it. It's a ceremony. Inside the dark, hot space, people pray, sing, and share what's on their hearts. It's a ritual of purification for the body, for the mind, and for the spirit. People emerge calm and embracing, a reminder that physical and spiritual cleansing can be one and the same. Then you have practices like herbal bathing. From ancient Rome to Japan to the Amazon rainforest, this wasn't just about getting clean, it was a form of medicine and a moment of peace. Lavender to calm the nerves, rosemary to clear the mind, chamomile to soothe the skin. It was a sensory experience, a way to slow down and absorb the healing power of nature. It washed away the stresses of the day. It turned a simple bath into a mindful, restorative ritual. And we can't forget about meditation. Long before it was a trendy app, it was a cornerstone of Buddhism and Hinduism. For thousands of years, people have practiced sitting in stillness. They focused on their breath. They observed their thoughts without judgment, a training ground for focus, clarity, and compassion. Let's also consider the power of communal dance and music. In many cultures, dance told stories, celebrated harvests, mourned losses, and connected people to the divine. It was a way to release emotion and strengthen social bonds, often entering states of heightened awareness. These ancient practices weren't just a checklist of healthy habits. They were powerful because they were built on a foundation of connection. First and foremost, they connected people to themselves. In the quiet of a meditation session or the solitude of an herbal bath, you have a chance to listen. Not to your phone, not to your boss, but to your own body and your own thoughts. They also forged an unbreakable connection to community. Think about the sweat lodge or the group dance. You weren't doing these things alone, you were surrounded by your people, sharing an experience. This created a powerful sense of belonging and mutual support. This is the antidote to the loneliness that so many of us feel today. These rituals reminded everyone that they were part of a tribe, a collective that cared for them. Furthermore, these rituals fostered a deep, respectful connection to nature. Using herbs for a bath required knowledge of the plants, an understanding of the seasons, and a sense of gratitude for what the earth provides. Building a sweat lodge involved honoring the elements: fire, water, earth, and air. This perspective cultivated stewardship and humility, reminding people their health was linked to the health of the planet. Finally, these practices connected people to something bigger than themselves, a sense of meaning or spirituality. Whether through prayer, chanting, or connecting with ancestors, rituals provided a framework for understanding one's place in the universe. They answered the big questions. Why are we here? How should we live? In our often secular and fragmented modern world, we sometimes lack these anchors. Ancient rituals provided a compass, guiding people with tradition, purpose, and reverence for life's mystery. Okay, so this all sounds great, but how do we actually bring these ancient ideas into our 21st century lives? We can't all just build a sweat lodge in our backyard. The key is not to replicate these rituals exactly, but to capture their spirit. It's about adapting the core principles to fit our modern context. We can take the wisdom and translate it into simple, accessible actions. It's less about historical reenactment and more about intentional living. You might not have access to a traditional herbal bath, but you can transform your regular shower or bath into a mindful ritual. Instead of rushing through it while mentally planning your day, you can slow down. Add some Epsom salts and a few drops of lavender essential oil. Pay attention to the feeling of the warm water. What about meditation? You don't need to join a monastery or sit for hours. You can start with just 5 minutes a day. Find a quiet spot, close your eyes, and focus on your breath. You don't even need an app. On your lunch break, on the bus, right after you wake up, a small habit of stillness before you check your email. And that sense of community? We can find that too. A weekly walk with friends, phones away. A book club, a cooking group, a regular potluck with your neighbors. Intentional recurring gatherings that foster real conversation. It's about building your own modern tribe. The ancient wisdom here is that we need each other. We need shared experiences to feel whole, and we can create those anywhere. We can all draw from this ancient well of wisdom and find the practices that resonate with our own lives. The answers aren't in some guru's book, they're in your own experience. So I encourage you, be brave, be curious. Try one small thing. Weave a tiny thread of ancient rhythm into your modern life. So, we've talked about the problem, our fast-paced, disconnected lives, and we've looked at the ancient solution, rituals that foster connection to self, community, and nature. Now, the most important part is putting it into practice. Reading is interesting, but the real magic happens when you actually try it. I want to issue a simple challenge. For the next week, choose one small, ancient-inspired ritual and commit to it. Just one. Don't overthink it. Do it every day for 7 days. It could be taking a 5-minute silent walk outside every morning without your phone. It could be making a cup of herbal tea each night and drinking it slowly, without distractions. It could be stretching for a few minutes before bed, really feeling your body, or calling a friend for a real conversation instead of just sending a text. The key is consistency and awareness. Do your chosen ritual every day for 7 days. Notice how you feel before, during, and after. Do you feel calmer, more grounded, more connected? Maybe you won't notice a huge change right away, and that's okay. The point is to create the space and see what happens. Keep a little journal. Write one sentence each day about your experience. You are the scientist and the subject. What works for me might not work for you. We can all draw from this ancient well and find the practices that resonate with our lives. The answers aren't in some guru's book, they're in your own experience. So, be brave, be curious. Try one small thing. See how it feels to weave a tiny thread of ancient rhythm into your modern life. You might be surprised at the profound sense of wellness you uncover.